Welcome to Speaking of Entrepreneurship, a podcast powered by the Center for Entrepreneurs at Cuyahoga Community College's Corporate College. Here, we dive into real conversations with industry experts, innovative founders, and business leaders who share their insights, challenges, and strategies for success. Whether you're launching a startup, scaling your business, or just exploring the entrepreneurial mindset, this is your space to learn, adapt, and thrive.
Most nonprofits and small businesses are started because everyone feels they have a passion and a problem that they want to solve. But I can tell you that we have someone with us today that will tell you that you need a whole lot more than that, because is passion enough? Well, our guest today on the Speaking Entrepreneurship podcast will tell you, don't even come close. All right, so today in the studio, I am so excited and so honored to have Melina Higbee here with us of the Bee Experience. And she is going to talk to us today about why passion is only a piece of what you really need to be successful in entrepreneurship. But before we get into that, I have to talk about this name because you know I love it, right? I am Beehive. And when I saw it, I was like, it's giving. Do you get that a lot? Do you have a beehive?
I don't have a beehive.
Do you want a beehive?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Of course you do. We all entrepreneurs want a beehive, right? I mean, masterful marketing. But I mean, I can't wait to dive more deeply into it because so many of us start our nonprofit organizations, nonprofit founders, small businesses, entrepreneurs will say, I feel really, really passionate about this particular thing, right? Maybe it's even something that they were told, you're really, really good at this, or it just like gives them fire. And so they're like, I can do this on my own. I can go out there and take this passion and start a business. And then they have visions of sugar plums dancing in their head, or maybe bees, right? Dancing in their head. And they're like, I can do this without necessarily going all in on really understanding what it really truly takes to actually turn that passion into profit. Because I think that that's a really specific piece of the puzzle.
Yes, it is.
So today you're going to talk me and walk me through why having a strategy, why creating boundaries, why also giving yourself the grace to grow is so important. So, but before we get into that, tell us a little bit about the Bee Experience, how you got started, why you got started, what you do exactly, and why you think that passion alone probably isn't enough to really do this thing.
Thank you, Cheryl. So I started the Bee Experience because I worked for an organization for almost 20 years. And I created a spiritual entrepreneur fellowship for that organization. But the problem was I was traveling the United States, taking entrepreneurs from all over the country. And I realized we weren't giving back to the city of Cleveland. And that was important to me. The city has raised me. And I wanted to make sure that my talents were being used where I wanted them to be used. So in 2023, I kind of thought like, how am I going to do this? And in 2024, I launched the Bee Experience. And it's really, my sweet spot is nonprofit, but any entrepreneur. And you're absolutely every one of them.
Absolutely.
And you're right. They go into this with, I have the passion, but they don't have the tools. And for me, it was really about Black women, women of color that don't get invited to the table. We are out there trying to figure out things for ourselves. A lot of us sometimes don't even know we have a business. You bake a cake, and then your neighbors and your family are saying, bake cakes, and you truly have a business, and then you start a business.
Yeah.
But you never go back and do the business plan, the financial piece. You never go back and do it. And at some point it catches up with you, and you're like, and it's like, yeah, you have a business. So let's flip that. Let's do the business planning first and then start the business. So that is how the Bee Experience came about. It's coaching, mentoring, workshops. I thrive on being in person. I don't like the little boxes. Because I like to create that community. Community is very important as an entrepreneur.
It's funny, I smile because you said something that I thought was really relevant to my own experience when I started my business all those years ago. And it was a lot of times we don't even know we have a business, right? And that was legitimately what happened to me. I mean, when I started my very first business, it was not a business officially. I was a freelancer. I was a 1099, and I literally had no idea that I was a business owner at the time. I just thought that I was working for my client. Now I know that they were a client, but I was working for someone, and I was just paying my own taxes on it. And I didn't even associate it with being entrepreneurial, which means I didn't go any further. I didn't offer those exact same services to anybody else. So I only had one client.
Okay.
Meaning, why? Why would I ever do that? Like nowadays, thinking where I am now, I don't even think I could eat if I only had one client.
Right.
But then I was like, no, I work for someone. I'm just paying my own taxes. And in reality, no. I had my own business and just didn't realize that's what it was. And so I didn't set it up in the best way that I could that first year. I got killed in taxes because of what I made. And I was also living overseas, which brought a whole different dynamic to the tax situation, my residency situation, what state I was in or not in, the fact that my permanent address was still in Ohio, but I was actually living in Nairobi, Kenya. It was a whole thing.
Yes,
because
it was.
I didn't even know that I was a business owner. And that is a thing for our community.
Oh, yes, it sure
in the
is.
Black community. It's a thing.
I mean, because like I said, it comes from, they have a passion. And a lot of them say there's a need. And I always use the example, and we all probably have known in Black community, Big Mama. And Big Mama's
I had a Big Mama.
See?
My grandma's name was Big Mama.
Right. And so many of them are feeding their community. The kids get out of school and they're in their house making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they don't even realize you really have a nonprofit that you're starting.
And they're just giving it away.
They're just giving it away.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of community, but it's also where start your business, capitalize on your business because you have created one, you just don't know it yet.
Most nonprofit founders don't even realize they're starting businesses.
No.
I mean, they think, I want to start a nonprofit. I get the question all the time. This is my business idea, even with my own coaches. I have a business idea. I'm thinking about starting a nonprofit. And I always say, you're still starting a business. I mean, even when you register it with your state, it's
a business.
Right. It's a corporation, which means it comes with its own, it just has its own thing. And oftentimes I tell people, like, I'm not sure if it should be a nonprofit because it has a social component, right? And so let's dive a little bit more deeply into that, because do you think that if someone has a business idea and it has a social component, meaning, a give back component, that it should automatically be a not-for-profit? Or how does someone know if they should be starting a non-for-profit versus a for-profit that can still have a social meaning behind it?
I think it just depends on who that person is. I think people don't realize that with the nonprofit, you have to have a board. There's things you got to have with the nonprofit.
Yes.
So sometimes it's better just to have a for-profit business and give back to your community, because you can still have that social aspect, but you don't have some of the other pieces of it. Creating a board for a nonprofit is a lot of work, and you don't, and a lot of times it's board members who are doing exactly what you want them to do, and they have fiduciary responsibility for your nonprofit, and a lot of them just do not get that.
And they, in essence, become your boss.
Yes.
Because that's another question that I tell people to ask themselves, right? When you're starting a nonprofit, I say, well, I need you to answer some questions for me. And I will say, do you want to own the business? And if they say yes, I'm like, do you want to make unlimited income from the business? And if they say yes, and I'm saying, do you potentially want to leave the business to your children or as a legacy to someone in your family in the future? And when they say yes, I say, then you don't want to start a nonprofit.
That's right.
Why? Because you can't do any of that stuff with a nonprofit. You're in essence a founder.
Right.
You're not an owner.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more in depth what everything I just said means for those who are out there right now thinking, I want to start this business because I have an amazing idea, but because I want to serve people, I think it should be a nonprofit. So break that down for everybody so they understand.
Yeah, I kind of went through that as well, and kind of at first kept thinking like I want to do a nonprofit. And I'm going to tell you, it was the board that made me feel like, no, I don't want to do that, because I did. To be honest, I didn't want to answer to them. I mean, that's what it was. I didn't want to answer to a board. No, I didn't want that.
Because they can fire you
exactly.
eventually.
And you have to be careful about that. And I don't think people realize it. It's like, because again, it's the need, it's the passion that's there. But give back to your community. I think that you have to sit with that and weigh your pros and cons, because a lot of people don't think about it. I mean, it's like, I want to give to the kids. I'm creating this because of the kids, but you can still give back. So for me, I think it's personal preference. And who is your board? What are the laws around the nonprofit world? What can you get? What can you give? And so I would say take the time to do your own homework on what makes sense to you. And you may come out and say it is still a nonprofit, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
But you need to be very clear about what your end game is. And if it is to give back, give that legacy to your family and they're going to carry it on, you probably don't want a nonprofit.
Absolutely. And if you don't want bosses,
right?
If you want to be your own boss, right? If that's like the core prevailing thing, then you don't want to start a nonprofit either. Because I've had coachees that come to me starting for-profits because they were for-profit nonprofit founders. And one of them in particular was we had to do a lot of mindset work and unpack how devastated she was when her board of directors, she was the founder, and had gotten the organization to a really amazing level. And her board of directors fired her ultimately from being the executive director. And she was like, they can't do that. I'm like, oh, absolutely
yes, they can.
So let's take that same intellectual property and skill set and focus it in a for-profit way.
I agree.
And I went through the same because I came from nonprofit. That's what all of my consulting work was in. And I thought, I'm a kind of a mission-oriented person. And it was my husband who actually said to me, you can work in for-profits and volunteer for nonprofits. Right. So I sit on a lot of boards, and I do a lot of pro bono coaching and consulting work for nonprofits because I am still very passionate. And as a consultant, a lot of nonprofits are my clients. Yes. But my future involves a nonprofit, but I want to have a certain revenue in my for-profit that I can start my own nonprofit with a $1 million donation off the rip, and we good to go, and we not relying on.
And that's the other thing about having a for-profit. You can donate to the nonprofit that you have passion for.
And it's a great tax vehicle.
Yes, it is.
Well. You know how that goes, right? So, I mean, I love that we've dove into this piece, especially when you're starting. What are some other things that that nonprofit founders, new entrepreneurs, what would you say the top 3 things that they have to have, that you have to really have in place or at least be aware of in order to get things going in the right direction right away?
Well, for me, I think it's definitely having a business plan. Excuse me. I think that they jump in because, again, they feel like, I can just do this. I have a skill. I know how to do this. But your business plan is your roadmap. And I don't think people look at it that way. I tell them, I said, it's a livable, breathable document. It's not that you just write a business plan and put it on the shelf and it stays there. I have a friend who did that.
That's what I did.
And, you need to revisit it. And you have to figure out that frequency. For some people, it might be every month. It may be quarterly. It may be once a year, but you need to go back and review it. Business plan for sure. I'm a firm believer of know your strengths, hire your weaknesses.
I love that. Say that again. Can we get an amen?
It's know your strengths and hire your weaknesses. And I don't necessarily mean financially paying someone. Learn to barter.
Exchange of services.
That's it.
Right?
Is maybe
sweat equity.
That's it.
I shouldn't have said that. Do not take me seriously. Do not go out and give away shares of your business. For sweat. That's not what I'm saying.
Not at all.
Okay.
It's like, if you're not good at finances and somebody else is, and somebody needs HR and you're good at that, barter. How can we support each other? I think the other thing is finding your community. Entrepreneurship can be a lonely road. And I think that when you start, there'll be people in your circle who will go, you can't do this. Why would you do this?
Can you say that a little louder?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is so true.
It's so true. You have naysayers who you think will support you, and they don't necessarily.
And they can be people that you
love.
Family, friends, yes, they can be. Like,
that you
why?
thought loved you.
Yes, yeah.
They just are scared for you.
Right.
They're
And
just
and
scared.
they and I don't think they mean it in a negative way, but it comes off that way. So for me, I always say as an entrepreneur, find your community. Find like-minded people. And no one's saying you have to throw those other people away, but those are your people who will help you grow.
I call them business besties.
That's it.
And I have like an entire business besties group chat that we're not necessarily going to go out for girls' night out all the time, but we do have a business bestie phone call every month. And, we actually started doing it during the pandemic when you couldn't do anything but have a phone call every month. And everybody was like drinking a lot at home. And so we all bring, it's BYOB.
Okay.
And we typically have like our own snacks and BYOB. And we all have a glass of wine together and we just vent.
I love it.
We just talk about it. We originally was scheduled for 90 minutes, and sometimes we've gone as long as 4 hours. Just talking about everything that's going on, sharing ideas, sharing best practices, laughing, crying, screaming, shouting, supporting. And when something happens and we have to reschedule it, I feel it.
Yeah.
And that community piece is so powerful. What you're saying
it really
right now.
is. I mean, it's like, it just means so much. And you're not alone as an entrepreneur. I mean, when you get to talking about your pitfalls, you can relate. You're like, oh yeah, I've been there.
I'm not the crazy one.
I've been there.
Yes.
And we need to support each other on our journeys. And so for me, those are the things that are important.
So what are the number one thing that you think you hear from those that you work with as startup entrepreneurs and as newer entrepreneurs, I should say, that is their biggest pain point and challenge that you hear? The biggest one. I know there's probably tons of them, but what's the biggest one you hear more often than not from your nonprofit founders?
The nonprofit founders are probably finances. How do I get money?
How do you raise money?
How do I raise money? And there's no formula to it. I mean, honestly, you can apply for grants. You may get them, you may not. I tell a lot of, entrepreneurs, majority of us are bootstrapping. We're financing our own passion. And maybe you can find someone else who is passionate about what you're doing, who's willing to help you. But most of us are bootstrapping. And that's what you have to do. I mean,
you have to market, right?
Right.
That's about marketing.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that's just hearing what you're saying and thinking through my own coachees and clients and students I work with that are nonprofit founders. Because they're not thinking of themselves as a business, they don't always put a marketing strategy together. But fundraising is all about marketing. Actually, it's harder marketing because you're selling a mushy feeling.
Right.
You're selling heart
it.
and emotion. You're not necessarily selling a tangible product that somebody can walk away with. So you really have to understand your value and your messaging. And I tell people, if you're a nonprofit and you don't have your 501c3 actually yet, before you get there, start an individual fundraising campaign.
Right.
But that requires some marketing.
Yeah.
So what are you telling your students to do to start marketing? Like, what's the first marketing thing that they should do?
Well, the first thing they should do is find out if there's a need. Just because you have a passion doesn't mean there's buy-in. And that's a hard pill for people to swallow because they're like, well, I think there's a need.
Yes.
Okay, well, find out. Do the real work. Do surveys. Ask people, like, if I were doing this, how could you benefit from this service? And maybe there is a need, maybe there isn't. And so if there's not, maybe that's when you find someone to donate your funds to and volunteer. Maybe you shouldn't start your own nonprofit. I think that that's important when you're looking at marketing, because if there's not a need, who are you marketing to?
It's funny that you said, well, I think there's a need. And the first thing that I thought to myself was, well, you going to give to yourself?
Right.
Because if that's how you're going to do it, all right then. But if you're looking for other people, you have to make sure that what you say to them connects with them.
Right.
And that's what marketing is all about.
Yeah. And finding out who your audience is. I think that a lot of time for nonprofits as well, they're all over the place because they're just trying to make ends meet. But who is your target audience? And I think that a lot of them struggle. I've watched them and they go, well, what do you mean? Like, who are you selling
Your
this service
customer.
to? Right. Who is that person?
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't know.
Or they have multiples.
And they have a lot.
A lot.
And I've watched them I've got this nonprofit. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And I'm thinking, but are you doing any of it well?
And when someone comes to you with all those ideas like that, what do you tell them?
Let's focus.
One. I always say,
Yeah.
pick
Yeah.
one.
We've had to do that. We've had people come to the nonprofit track and I'm going to do this. And I said, I need you to come with one idea to this class. You grow from there, but you can't just be all over, because if you're going to someone and asking them to finance your business, they want to know you know what you're doing. And if you're like, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and I'm thinking, yeah, they're not going to finance you because you don't really know what you're doing.
And if I'm confused,
you're
confused.
Right.
And if you're confused, I'm going to need you to get your confusion all the way together before I start giving you my money. I mean, and that's the real deal. That's what customers think. But that's what we all do as customers, right? We all want to know that what we are giving our money to, whether it's through a donation or whether we're buying something, that the person that created that is good at that.
Right.
And if they're doing 50 different things, how can you be good at any one thing? I use the analogy all the time. It's the difference between why neurosurgeons make a lot more than general practitioners. Neurosurgeons make $200,000 a minute or something ridiculous.
Right.
I don't know. And a general practitioner is going to maybe be making, it's still a lot of money, but $20,000 a minute, because neurosurgeons are specialized, right? And so that specialist you go to when you have brain surgery, when you need to have brain surgery, you're not going to go to a general practitioner. You want to know, I'm going to somebody who specializes in surgery on my brain.
That's right. And it's the same thing for business. And I also tell them, like, what makes you different? What makes you stand out? If I had two nonprofits to choose from, or businesses, what makes you different? What's going to make me give you my money?
Your unique value proposition.
That's it. And they have to figure that out.
So for you as an entrepreneur, what would you say? I mean, you mentioned that in 2023, so you're still new and young in your journey, although yours is intellectual property based. And so, and people say that all the time. I say, you're selling your brain power.
Right.
And you've been doing your brain power forever. So you've probably been having the business a lot longer than it officially started. Right. Because you've been selling your brain forever. You were just loaning it to someone else.
That's so funny.
That was
you
like
say that
was like paying you to use your brain and telling you how much your brain was worth. Right. Until you escaped. I always say, I escaped that abusive relationship because I felt like it was.
It is. And I just shared that in a class not too long ago. And I said, you think about it, and it's just that. It's your intellectual property. And even if a company is paying you $100,000, how much are they making off of your intellectual property when you really think about it?
It's the safety net.
Yes, and it is. And I get it.
So for you, what's been your biggest challenge?
Probably the time, because I still do work full time, and and so those are some of the things that I've said to other entrepreneurs. Because I wouldn't advise you to just jump out the tree and leave your safety net, but I would say make sure that if you're giving a company 40 hours a week, make sure that you're giving your own at least 20% of that. Come home. Find the time, if it's 15 minutes one day, and that's how I operate. I try to make sure that I'm giving the bee experience 20% of my time. And it looks different every day. Some days I may have 15 minutes. Some days I may have 2 hours. But I've promised myself that I would give my business what it deserves. And it's not going to grow if you can't invest in yourself.
That is powerful. And on point, right? Because oftentimes we will give somebody else more than we'll give ourselves.
Yes.
And that takes discipline to continue to give it to yourself.
Yes.
Oh my God, I love that. Thank you. So what's one thing? Because we got to wrap up. I can't keep you all day because, the bees are buzzing. I'm like making myself laugh. I can be real corny with the jokes, so just ignore me. The bees are buzzing. But what's one piece of advice that you would want to leave our audience with? Those startup nonprofit founders, those startup entrepreneurs that are just beginning their journey, that you have experienced yourself, but also that you teach to your students. What's the one piece of advice that you would like to leave them with?
Grace. Grace. Give yourself the same grace that you give others. And we don't do that. We will beat ourselves up because we didn't do this. This didn't happen the way we wanted to. And this is your race. It's nobody else's. You're not in competition with anybody but yourself.
Sis, that's a word. Because we do not give ourselves
We
grace.
do not.
So you heard it. You heard it from an expert. You heard it from our amazing guest today.
Thank you.
So much again for
Thank
joining
you.
us. We have got to do this again.
Thank you.
Because I think that there are a million other topics that we could get into specifically for our nonprofit founders and our
Yes.
startup entrepreneurs that would change the game for them. So in my brain right now, I'm like thinking about all of these things. But obviously, if today's conversation resonated with you, please make sure that you like, subscribe, share this with someone who could really use this knowledge. And you heard it. You heard her say it. Give yourself some grace. It's okay. Everything that you're going through is one of the things that is just a part of this journey. And if you don't allow yourself to experience it, you'll never learn. And until next time, my loves, I look forward to seeing you the next time we have Speaking of Entrepreneurship. And until then, please let us know if you have any questions in the comments below. I'll make sure that we save them up for the next time that we get a chance to get together so that we can address them one by one. But until then, we'll see you soon. Mwah! Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast, brought to you by the Center for Entrepreneurs at Corporate College. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow entrepreneurs. Tune back in to stay connected with us for more insights and resources to help you build, innovate, and thrive.